tomorrow.
Good evening. Concern is growing over proposed changes at Guernsey's ambulance station. Staff have already expressed their worries over suggested reductions in manning levels and the loss of the first aid room. Those fears were echoed this afternoon in a statement issued by John Gilbert of the Transport Union. The main concern is reduction in manning levels. Proposals suggest a reduction of 2 men on overnight duty, leaving just 3 to man the station. The unions say this would mean only 1 ambulance instead of 2 could be dispatched at any one time. Men are concerned that delays caused by having to call staff in could at worst result in fatality. The statement also expresses fears over the closure of the first aid room. In future, anyone seeking first aid will have to go to the Princess Elizabeth Hospital. Jersey's Public Health Committee want to send a grant of £100,000 to the Wessex Medical Trust. Their report, which has been approved by the Finance Committee, will go before the States shortly. In addition, they want to give £50,000 to the Special Care Baby Unit at the Princess Anne Hospital in Southampton. This latest information has absolutely delighted the Wessex Medical Trustees. The director, Lieutenant Colonel John Haywood, is visiting Jersey at the moment. Jane Byer asked him in what way Channel Island has benefited from the trust.
Well, the Medical Trust supports the new medical school at Southampton and Portsmouth and the region, and the professors and their units, of which there must be about 20 and all their experts, give the advanced tier of medical health over and above National Health Service consultant. When you go across, you may think you're seeing a National Health doctor, but in fact you're more likely to see one of our university faculty professors or their clinical staff.
It's not very often that Channel Islanders go to Southampton or that area, Portsmouth included, for medical treatment though.
Oh yes, there is. Oh yes, in fact we've had the president of your health committee over, an administrator, and they fully appreciate the backing that we get. I mean, we keep an intensive care cot virtually readily available for you, and do you know what that costs? 80,000 a year, just to keep one cot.
But do you not get support from the United Kingdom government?
Well, the funding of a university medical school comes from the University Grants Committee and a certain fund from the Medical Research Council. But as you know, we're being cut back very, very heavily on public spending. But research and researchers traditionally in Great Britain have been funded by voluntary contribution, not by the state. The National Health Service funds are for treatment. We're looking at advanced methods of curing.
Have you, in fact, ever lost a researcher through lack of money?
Not only have I lost them, I'm in the process of losing 3 this summer. And one of our leading one on cot deaths who had to go on where there's more money, and one on cancer, and I got a lady surgeon who could well leave at the end of September unless I have more money to fund her.
Guernsey is taking action to prevent open market properties being used as lodging houses. Housing know of at least 2 properties being used this way. They're worried that such lodging houses could lead to immigration and a substantial entry of people into the employment market. The authority are proposing an amendment to the law which will also cover residential and nursing homes. La Gare de Greville, the former Jersey Eastern Railway station house, has been designated a site of special interest by the Island Development Committee because of its historical importance. It's the first such designation since a broadening of the planning law earlier this year. The house was built around 1880 and the IDCs say the exterior has only had 2 windows added since then, and the interior as much as it was originally. The ticket office is still there. Until this year, the planning law only allowed buildings to be designated. Now sites under the headings of zoological, botanical, cultural and scientific can also be included. Jersey's Public Works Committee have no intention of controlling the use of private boreholes. President Deputy Don Filiol told us they would, however, like to know how much water comes out of boreholes, but as the committee haven't yet had time to discuss the issue, they haven't come up with an idea how this could be done. He also said the committee would like the public who are using borehole water to know that they are often not receiving the quality of water they think they are. Guernsey's North Beach reclamation scheme has so far cost nearly £2 million and is running well up to schedule. In fact, parts of the project are ahead of time. Night work on the £16 million scheme had to be stopped after less than a week because of noise complaints from local residents. One was actually received from a person living in St Andrews, 1 3/4 miles away. But in spite of this setback, drilling operations have been maintained and there'll be no delay to the overall programme, say the Board of Administration. Jersey's Public Works Committee want to set up a cafe refreshment area in Howard Davis Park. The President, Deputy Don Filial, says they've always been against the idea of an ice cream concession because of the litter, but Public Works have now decided that an area where people could sit and enjoy the park would add to its amenities. They say they have a suitable area in mind, and if it's approved, they'd put the concession out to public tender. Guernsey's Housing Authority are to convert Torterville Rectory into 6 one-bedroom flats. The work will cost £52,000 and follows other similar conversions which the authority has successfully achieved. They say the rental will cover the initial capital cost as well as administrative and maintenance costs. The authority are also asking the States for the go-ahead to spend over £350,000 on 12 new houses in Rue Cohu, Catel. Former Jersey States member Maurice Leto has died at the age of 67. He was a one-time deputy for St Lawrence and president of the Island Development Committee. Mr Leto was a long-serving director of the Jersey General Investment Trust, of which he became chairman in 1970. He'd been a director of Channel Television since 1977. Guernsey States will debate at the end of this month whether they should finance BBC Radio Guernsey to enable them to make live broadcasts of States meetings. But it looks as if the House will say no to giving the local radio station any money. The Broadcasting Committee are against the idea, which stemmed from a request to the House by Deputy Paul Degari, and their views are supported by the Advisory and Finance Committee. They consider that taxpayers' money has already been spent on the provision of facilities for broadcasting, which are available for use at the discretion of the media, not at the discretion of the states. And they feel it would be wrong to give a grant to meet part of the cost of radio broadcasting when no grant is given to meet the costs of Channel Television or the Guernsey Evening Press in performing the same service. Today, Radio Guernsey's manager, Tony Talmadge, said, "I must emphasise that Radio Guernsey has never asked for money from the States. The suggestion of a grant came from 2 senior politicians who wanted more live coverage of future meetings." Guernsey's Education Council are asking the States for almost £1 million for a new infants department at St Martin's Primary School. Earlier this year, parents of children at the school complained bitterly of the Dickensian conditions. But now the old school building has been knocked down and 5 tenders have been received for the new work. The IDC are raising no objections to the Education Council's proposals. You may recall the television programmes Ark on the Move and The Amateur Naturalist featuring Jersey's Gerald Durrell. Next in the pipeline is a series of programmes on Russia. John Hartley, Gerald Durrell's personal assistant at the zoo, is off to Russia next week. So is he to be the next TV presenter of wildlife programmes?
I hope not, no. This is going to be my 4th trip. The next television series that Jerry will make will be in the Soviet Union. So in the next 18 months he will be spending about 16 weeks there. I shall probably be spending about 30 weeks. Basically what's happening is that myself and the director are doing a series of recce's to all the various locations so that we can write up, if you like, the sort of research packs so that Jerry can then look at those and decide that when we go to the Tian Shan Mountains or the Caucasus or whatever, the sort of statement that he wants to make, the things that he wants to see and talk about, he can look at all that material and decides that when we get there. And one of the worst things I find is some of the programmes we've made where we haven't been able to do that research. There's nothing more frightening than arriving somewhere exotic with a television crew. There's usually sort of a dozen of us in the team, and everybody stands around, scratches their heads and say, well, why have we come here and what shall we do? And so we're very pleased with this because I think it's really important. Firstly, there has been virtually nothing on television that I've seen about the wildlife of the Soviet Union. The only thing we've seen about the people in Russia tends to be sort of, if you like, the military parades in Red Square. Now, I'm not so naive that I think what we do is going to change the world, But I do think for Western audiences, after all, this series will be shown in Britain, Canada, Australia, probably the United States. There's usually a French version done for French Canada, which usually then gets into Europe. A massive audience. And I think it would be just good for us to see non-political things in a country that, after all, we feel has a major influence on us, the Soviet Union. You know, I've had a privilege. I've been there 3 times already. I've met some wonderful, delightful people. You know, you scratch them, they bleed just the same as I do. They have the same problems about their kids at school and whether they're going to have a decent meal that night, that exactly the same as you and I. And I think it will be a useful thing to do, to just show the wildlife, countryside, the people, how they work in it, what they're doing for conservation, of course. And it will just help us to appreciate a little bit more about that particular country.
So, John, you're not just in the business of conserving the life on our planet, but you're also promoting international peace through understanding, right?
Yes, however, the first remark is always the most important, but without the second, the first doesn't stand a possibility. I mean, a lot of people worry in terms of the survival of the planet about the nuclear bomb. I mean, I never give it a thought. It's totally out of my power. If it's going to happen, it'll happen. I just want to do my little bit to ensure that as long as it doesn't happen, those people around and the wildlife that we share the planet with have some sort of a decent life.
So, just a week today, and you'll be sitting by the shores of Lake Baikal.
Well, hopefully, yes, it's good, isn't it?
Yes. It is the largest landlocked freshwater lake?
That's correct, yes. And it even has a freshwater seal, the Baikal seal, which we hope to see in film, which there has been a little bit of film done, but not much. It's one of the things we're trying to do. We also hope to be able to go and see snow leopards in the wild state. European bison has been a very, very good conservation story, so we want to show that. And from what I've seen so far, I've been very impressed with what they're doing. I went to one reserve in June, where there were over 300 scientists working there. Now, honestly, you'd be hard put in the Western world, if you like, to go to take you to a reserve where I could show you 300 top-rate scientists working. I mean, that is impressive, and I think we ought to know that. We ought to know more about it and what they are doing. Because the more we can exchange information and ideas, the more I think we're likely to live happily together. That is a naive statement, but one has to have some beliefs.
Well, now the weather. Here's Harry Graham.
Good evening. We're having a quiet little spell with a weak ridge over England and the West Channel. The ridge is declining as a weak cold front moves into Scotland and Ireland. The front's moving only very slowly and will become even weaker. If we can turn to the forecast chart, the cold front will be moving into the West Channel, but there'll still be enough of the ridge left to bring another day without much wind. Perhaps not too welcome a forecast for the weekend yachting activities. Tonight in the islands, fair but quite hazy, and mist or low cloud patches will form locally by morning. Minimum 10 degrees. The wind light, mainly from the northwest, but variable or calm locally with slight or smooth seas. The caption chart for tomorrow shows that after a misty, possibly cloudy start, we expect a fair day, with sunny periods bringing a maximum near 18 degrees. The winds light and variable, becoming mainly westerly, possibly light to moderate, with smooth or slight seas. The outlook for Saturday night and Sunday, freshening winds from the west or southwest, with cloud and possibly some rain later on Sunday.
Tonight's top stories. Concern is growing over proposed changes at Guernsey's ambulance station. Staff have already expressed their anxieties over suggested reductions in manning levels and the loss of the first aid room. Those fears were echoed by the Transport Union this afternoon. Jersey's Public Health Committee want to send a grant of £100,000 to the Wessex Medical Trust and £50,000 to the Special Care Baby Unit at the Princess Anne Hospital in Southampton. That's it from Channel Report. Coming up, our regular Friday night sports report. Good night.